Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding guest with us this evening. He is a person that you should know, and accompanying him is another person you should know, Rita Mayfield, the Illinois State Representative from the 60th District. Good evening, Oscar Parham, right?
Yes.
All right.
Parham.
Ladies and gentlemen, I met Oscar at the 16th Annual Coalition Luncheon program, October 11, 2019. He was the Repatriates speaker there to reduce recidivism. It was held at Wedgwood Resorts, Wadsworth, Illinois. Oscar, I would like for you to tell our listening audience, is approximately, Lake County is approximately 750,000 people. And those that have Comcast, Channel 17, it airs every Thursday night at 7 o'clock.
Right.
And they are very interested in hearing your story. And I'd like for you to start us off from the beginning. You're a young man, young teenager, ready to go in life and start a career, start preparation for a career. And something happened. Tell us about your story.
Well, I grew up in Zion.
Okay.
Right? I'm the youngest of 8 siblings. I have 4 sisters and 3 brothers.
Okay.
And we are a close family, very close and tight-knit, which is actually very appealing to my story. It actually is a big part of my story.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I had a bright future in baseball. I was supposed to went pro. I had a lot of people scouting me. And the thing is that I kind of like, it was even to the point where my coach wanted to adopt me to keep my mind focused on baseball and take me out of the streets.
Okay.
But the thing is that the street life became too alluring for me, and I chose the street life, which was the wrong choice.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I chose the street life, got around the wrong crowd, got hooked up in the gangs, and ended up in prison with a natural life sentence. I was just released on August 5th of this year after serving 30 years.
For 2019, this is
2020.
2020.
Yeah. But I served 30 years of the natural life sentence.
Now, what does natural life mean? It means that no parole?
No parole. You do your natural life in prison. It's mandatory. It was a mandatory, let me stress that point. It was a mandatory natural life.
Okay.
But like I say, it means you get no parole. It's not like you do 20 years and then you all of a sudden come before the parole board.
Okay.
It's just life. It's over with.
Okay.
You're gonna die in prison. That's the best way I can put it.
Mm.
You know.
And that's something like the prison in Louisiana?
Angola.
Prison where that's real life. They die in prison.
Yeah.
I think what is so important about Oscar's story is that he was given a life sentence for something that he didn't do.
Okay.
You know, he was guilty through association from knowing from hanging around the wrong people. And that's what he, since he's been out, he's literally hit the ground running, trying to share his story with the youth to explain how easy it is to get caught up and how it had a negative impact on his life. Like he said, he served 30 years and he wasn't even in the room when the incident happened. So, but I don't want to expound on that. I will let him talk about that. But I just think it's important that individuals know that he did 30 years, basically because he was hanging with the wrong crowd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very important that you intercede anytime you get ready.
Okay.
No doubt.
You're the Illinois State Representative, and you had a great deal to do with his being here tonight.
Yeah.
Yes,
And so
she did.
you're, okay.
She did. You know, I don't know.
Go ahead. So tell us, I would like for you to explain to Dr. Brooks and to those that are out here viewing, you know, basically your sentencing, everything that happened that led to your going into the prison system.
Okay, so got caught up in a case with other guys, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to trial, but I'm under the theory of accountability. Now, accountability means that if you aid, abet, or facilitate the commission of a crime, that they can get you along even if you're not the shooter. You see what I'm saying? Now, the thing is that they didn't have me aiding, abetting, or facilitating any crime. So they come up with a new thing called common purpose or design, which is a link to accountability, which means that if you're a part of the same gang, basically, they can get you just like they got, and that's what they did with me. In my case, my lawyer was saying that it wasn't a gang-related case, right? So by him, he was arguing that the gang evidence should be irrelevant because it's not a gang-related case. Mm-hmm. But what happened was that the state argued and said, well, if you take the gang evidence out of the case, you're going to be cutting the guts out of our case. That's the point I want to make as far as, so the whole thing was the gang evidence was based on making me look like a bad person rather than anything that I did. Mm-hmm. You follow what I'm saying? So the guts of that case is not something that I did, it's the gang evidence.
It was the fact that he was hanging out with gang members, so he was guilty by association.
Exactly.
So even though these individuals who were in the gang committed an atrocious crime, the fact that, oh, well, Oscar, he was part of that gang, he was hanging out with them, he's just as guilty as them, even though he wasn't with them.
Right.
So, and that's the message, and we want to make sure that our young children understand that, because, you know, a lot of times your parents will say, be careful who you hang out with, it goes in one ear and out the other, but Oscar is living proof that you can end up in the prison system by hanging out with the wrong people.
Exactly, and you know, and another thing that I would like to say to the youth is that situations escalate, right? Because see, you never, most of the time, a lot of times, I ain't gonna say most of the time, but a lot of times you don't go into a situation meaning for something like this to happen. And it end up happening based on the simple strength that it's many guys that I knew in prison that were there, and they went to a house and didn't know that they was gonna end up doing something to kill somebody. They got into a fight and it escalated and stuff like that happened. And that happens in the gangs also. You see what I'm saying? So one incident where guys are getting drunk or getting high or whatever, and then all of a sudden they go out, and then because anytime you're in a gang, you're gonna always have that one person that's gonna want to try to show out and show everybody else he can be violent.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And you can get caught up in that, even though you're not violent, but you can get caught up in that just because you're with them. And the thing is that another thing that I would like the youth to know is that you have to break the peer pressure, because a lot of times we know stuff that's not right and we get linked to it anyway. But the peer pressure of not wanting to look like you a coward or something like that can break you down and make you go anyway, even though you know that it's not right. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that's important for the youth too.
Well, I want our listening audience to know that majority of incarcerations are with black men in this country. And we want to show how easy it is to be caught up. The reason our prison system is so filled with our young black men. And you're a young black man, had a great career, and in sports is what you were going to be adopted, you know, by your coach and so forth, and a great career, and that was cut short.
Yeah.
That was 30 years ago, and we're going to be talking about what happened during that 30 years, you know, as we go along. But 30 years, and you spoke about been not knowing. You didn't know that who you were dealing with. Is that right? You didn't know that was
as far as
what the gang was.
You didn't know that a crime was going to occur.
Oh no, you know, most of the time, like I say, most of the time guys go in not really knowing that a crime is going to occur. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You just, like I say, you always had that one guy that you know, that want to impress everybody else, and he want to do something violent, and you go in not knowing that something is going to occur. And it happens like that, believe me, a lot more than guys would think.
But you weren't even there.
I wasn't.
So,
No.
and I think that that's the important thing.
He
is
wasn't there.
He wasn't there
Right.
when the crime happened.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But because he was affiliated with these individuals who were doing wrong, and they were able to point a finger back and say, well, Oscar was, Oscar hangs out with us, he's one of us. Even though he wasn't there, he was guilty by association. And that's, we have to be so careful with that, because they are locking up our youth. Our black and brown youth are getting locked up at alarming rates. Yeah. And it's for little things like that. The system is set up against you. So when he starts talking about, not theory of accountability, what's that other term that you use?
Mandatory minimum?
No. No, what they used against you.
Common purpose of
Common
design.
purpose of design. So what they basically said is, because he was hanging out with gang members, he was a threat to society anyway, so we may as well lock him up now and just save ourselves the trouble of having to do it later. Even though he hadn't committed any crime, wasn't in the vicinity when the crime was committed, but you were friends with the wrong people.
Now, just to show you the role that the state felt that I played, right? They felt that they wanted me to do some time. But the thing is that they offered me an 11-year plea at 50%, which meant I would have had to do 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't have to turn states. Usually you get that type of deal when you turn the states evidence. Okay. I didn't have to turn states or nothing. See what I'm saying? So they didn't want, they knew, on one hand, they were saying that I was rehabilitatable after 5.5 years. Then when I didn't take the deal because I wanted to fight it in trial, and all of a sudden they say I'm incorrigible and beyond redemption by giving
Public
me a
enemy
natural
number
life.
one,
You see what I'm
even
saying?
though you weren't there.
Exactly.
Oh,
And the thing about it is that now I'm sentenced like I was John Wayne Gacy or Richard Speck or the Oklahoma City bomber. And the thing is that you have thousands of brothers in prison on that very same accountability charge. I got a buddy that he's doing 90 years, never had a record, never shot anybody, never killed anybody. He's doing 90 years right now fighting accountability. You see what I'm saying? So they're using accountability and like I say, the common purpose and design was actually designed to stop the gang banging. The thing is that it morphed into something, they used it for something. In my case, they used it for something different. You see what I'm saying? They used it as a means to just get the conviction, because the main witness in my case, he didn't even want to testify against me, but they forced him to testify against me. I found that out when I got out. I didn't even know that until I got out.
Wow. I can reflect back when I first came into the area. I was on the school board in North Chicago for 5 years. And, innocently, I went down on the south side of WAUKEGAN. I guess you may not have heard of Canard Club, the other clubs down there.
Elks and stuff like that.
Well, yeah.
Elks are North Chicago.
Just North Chicago,
Right.
but this is...
You had the Rainbow Lounge, you
Okay.
had Steele's Top Hat. There
Yeah,
were a
all
few of
those
them.
down. But I was at one of the clubs, and a young man, I don't remember who he was at this time, but he played a great effect on my life. He'd say, Brooks, you're on the school board in North Chicago, and we don't want you down here with us doing the things that we're doing, and you take care of making decisions for our kids' future. And I thought about that, and I haven't been down on the south. Of course, it's all torn down now,
Yeah.
Right.
But I didn't go back. I thought about that for a long time, and I'm still thinking about it, and that was back in the 70s,
Wow, okay.
Still thinking about how that turned my life around, because I could have said, I'm still coming down here and this type of thing. But that made so much sense.
Yeah.
And I could have been caught up in the same type of thing you're in right now. And that's what influenced me so much to say, you're going to have to be on my show.
Right, I appreciate it.
To talk about your situation. And also, Rita, you're an Illinois State Representative.
Yes.
For the 60th District.
60th District State Representative, yes.
And it covers what area?
WAUKEGAN, North Chicago, Beach Park, Gurney, and Wadsworth.
Wow, that's a huge area.
That's a huge area, yes it is. Yes,
now,
it is.
how did you get involved with Oscar?
Well, I received an invitation from this group that's trying to bring parole back to Illinois, and they were doing a debate down at Statesville Penitentiary, and the debate team was comprised of individuals who were there, and they were talking about the pros and cons of bringing back parole. Why should we bring back parole to Illinois? You know, and myself and several other legislators, there was a couple senators there, we all went down and we were all flabbergasted because we're like, no, we have parole. And what we found out is that what we were considering parole was mandatory supervised release, which is something entirely different. And we're like, no, they got rid of the parole system and they replaced it with this. And now they've got this truth in sentencing where you're just stuck doing all your time without the possibility of parole, as if to say that you cannot be rehabilitated. So we were having this discussion, and one of the speakers was Oscar. And when he told his story, you know, about how he was offered this plea deal, but because he wasn't there, he wasn't involved in the shooting. He's like, well, I didn't do it, so I didn't want to take the deal. You know, I was going to fight it. And then they threw the book at him, you know, and we were all, you know, there was myself and several others. We were like, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. There's something wrong with our system if you're just throwing people away, you know, because they're not taking a deal. So there's something wrong with that there, you know, so I came back and I scheduled another meeting so I can come back and talk to Oscar, because I wanted to be sure that I heard what I thought he had said. You know, I needed clarification. And when he repeated it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to look into this because this is not right. It just didn't sit right with me. I called a couple state's attorneys that I knew. One of them said, well, that's what he gets because he should have took the deal. You know, basically, that was, you know. And his response really took me aback because I'm like, but that has nothing to do with justice. And his response was, well, whose justice? You know, because, you know, this was a Caucasian male. As far as he was concerned, justice had been served because we put a black man in jail for the rest of his life, regardless of the fact if he did it or not. And I had a problem with that. So, you know, got some other people together, asked a few more individuals, and found out, you know, there is a process, you know, that we can take. And I had a couple, I know Oscar at the time had filed for his own clemency and was granted a reduction in his sentence, but that still wasn't enough because he had already served way more years than he should have served had he taken that initial deal. So, you know, I went to the Prison Review Board, wrote him a letter on Oscar's behalf asking that they review his case, and that led to him being released. So it was just a lot of moving parts, a lot of conversations, myself, you know, others that I had got involved, you know, because I'm not a lawyer, even though I watch TV all the time, I am not a lawyer. I have to stress that. It's a lot different. And, you know, but I wanted to make sure that I was doing things in a correct and orderly fashion, because what had happened to him was atrocious, and it's something that should not be happening in our current system. So now we're looking at how do we make put reforms into place to ensure that we're just not throwing individuals away, you know, for penalizing them for not working with the state's attorney, you know, for saying I'm not going to take your deal because I wasn't there and I didn't do what I was charged with. Yes, I'm guilty by association because I probably didn't have no business hanging out with these gang members in the first place, but that's a whole nother issue. That's you know, that's that parent issue that comes in when your parents tell you to be careful who you hang with. You know, obviously, like Oscar said, he had a promising future, but, you know, the call of the streets was strong. And, you know, living in the Waukegan, North Chicago, that's where I grew up. I see this every day with our youth out there, and I see our young men, and they've got so much potential, and you see that lure of the streets pulling them. You know, and then to take a child who really does have something to offer and say that they're not redeemable, we're just going to lock you up and throw away the key, that's not acceptable.
Exactly.
Tonight is my regular broadcast at night at 7 o'clock every Thursday. And tonight I'm interviewing a 15-year-old student, black male, that got a $49,000 scholarship to, forgot the name, in New Hampshire, Exeter,
Xavier?
The city. What is it?
Is it Xavier?
In New Hampshire.
Okay, I'm not sure.
EXETER. And I was thinking, here's a 15-year-old, and if you get back home tonight, you can watch it.
Okay, I will.
You know, it's tonight. And next week I have another young man from Shalem Church, just graduated from Divinity School in Tennessee. So I'm reaching back, getting young men,
That's great.
young black men on the show to show their lives could have been in the same situation yours is.
Yeah, no doubt.
If they had gotten with the wrong crowd, not planned,
Right.
but with the wrong. What about you? Rita mentioned something about attorney. Did you have an attorney on your case?
Not at first, because I went through years fighting my case pro se, which means that I was filing my own issues.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And at the very end, I finally, because I didn't want to ask my family. That's another thing about being in prison, right? That young guys need to know is that you make your families victims also. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Because now the gang's not going to take care of you. It's your family that's going to have to take care of you. Okay. So now all of a sudden I have to ask my family for some money to get me an attorney. You see what I'm saying? Because I knew I had it, and I did it at the last minute because I knew I had a real good shot. You see what I'm saying? So that's when I finally asked them to get me an attorney, and they went ahead. They seen that I had a good shot because they didn't want. At first they like, we can't just get no money away, and then you get still locked up. That's a lot of thousands of dollars to still be, to be just given away. And I kind of understood the point. You know what I mean? But the thing is that so once they seen that I really had a shot, they went ahead and got me the lawyer, and he ended up getting me out after the governor granted my clemency.
He had Doug Roberts, who's an awesome attorney, downtown Waukegan, Doug Roberts. Mm-hmm. I had several phone calls with Doug. He is wonderful to work with. He really is, and he really fought hard to make sure that Oscar got out.
And what happened was that once he read my case, I think that gave him a lot more fight. Because what happened was that he said, wow, he said, I read your case, and he said, you should have never got convicted of that. You should have never did no 30 years for that.
30 years.
Right.
He said, it was no way you were supposed to get convicted. What are they trying to say that you did? They don't say that I did anything. You see what I'm saying? Now, like I say, I'm arguing my own case in the appellate courts on direct appeal. I argued that the gang evidence was irrelevant because it wasn't a gang-related case. The only way they can use gang evidence is if it's a gang-related case in law.
Okay.
They wasn't supposed to use it because it wasn't by the state's own admission, it wasn't gang-related. When I filed my issue, just to show you that how the judges look at us when we file our own cases, when I filed my issue, the appellate court said, well, the gang evidence was relevant because it shows that you might have done something. And that's how they upheld my conviction for years. But the thing is that there's a thing called the Rule 23 order, which means that they don't have to publish my case. So my case was never published in the case law so that people can read it and see the type of law that they was using to hold me. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I always used to call it bad law. I was going to write an article in one of my classes entitled it Bad Law based on the Rule 23 order. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. I wrote it on something else. But the thing is that's the type of stuff that goes on in the law. And like I say, it's thousands of other brothers. At least 60 to 70% of the brothers that's in the black men that's in prison right now are based on the theory of accountability. You see what I'm saying? And I think it's just, I'm not saying that a person that gets convicted under the theory of accountability shouldn't serve any time. I'm just saying that they're over sentenced. That's all I'm saying, because there's another law in the Illinois Constitution called Article 1, Section 11. It's basically called the rehabilitation law. And in my view, and I hate to say this in front of, in front of you all, but I had to say this because of the simple fact that I don't believe that the state is honoring that law, because they're throwing us away and they're throwing them away. Just throwing us away without giving us any chance of rehabilitation.
What about public defenders? Do you have any confidence in public defenders, I guess, Rita?
None whatsoever.
Not even a little bit.
And it's not their fault. I think it's the design of the system. When you have, because a lot of public defenders, they're paid just horribly. I have to put that out there. They are truly not paid for the amount of work that they do. Okay. You have this individual who's given 50 cases a day. So they haven't had time to, actually meet and sit down and really dwell into it, because they're trying to get through all of these different cases, and the individuals just are not getting, as great a service as they probably could have had they had a private attorney, Unfortunately, but that's our system. I'm not sure what we can do to fix that. I know the county is looking at the public defenders. Right now, they're looking at how they can revamp some of, the process and just who is a public defender and how that whole process works. But we know that it needs it needs tweaking. It definitely needs tweaking. No one individual should be handed 50 new cases and said, okay, here you go. Everybody's up to date. Go and plead a deal.
Literally 50 cases per day.
It might be 25. I've heard as many as 50. But I guess it just depends on the day. It depends on what's going on. But I do know that they're overworked and underpaid, and it's just too difficult for them to really dwell into the case and to give it the amount of time that is needed, because there's a lot of time that goes into these cases. There's a lot of research, and if you've got that many cases coming in, it's very hard. It's very hard.
Would it make any difference if we had more minority public defenders?
More minority public defenders, state's attorneys, judges, absolutely. And by and I mean all minorities.
Exactly.
I'm not just talking about black ones. We need black, we need brown, we need Asian. We need more minorities, period, in our criminal justice system. Because right now those scales are very slanted. They're very slanted, and they're slanted against minorities.
And we have women is counted as minorities now, according to the law.
Correct.
We have a female head of the public defender's office, and she knows the struggle she had to getting to the top. So it seems like she would reach back.
Yeah.
And at
Well,
least
that would
set
be
up
the
a
hope.
commission.
That would be the hope.
Set up a commission or something to study.
Right.
You
And
know,
to see, what pathways, what needs to be tweaked, how do we get more, minorities into these slots? How do we reduce some of these caseloads? How do we pay them more money? All those things are needed, but that's neither here nor there. And it would not have helped Oscar's case, so.
Well, speaking of Oscar, he spoke on the accountability law. Tell our listening audience a little bit more about what it is.
Like I say, accountability just means that it's like it's holding one. It's a thing that they used to call it. They used to call it before. You ever heard of a book called The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander?
We've all heard of it.
Well, the book is about how they use the new law to really put black people back under Jim Crow in prison, right?
Okay.
Systemic incarceration.
Systemic incarceration.
Okay.
But the thing is that I forgot my point.
That's okay.
What was the question again? Ask me the question.
He's asking
again.
about accountability.
Oh yeah, accountability. Now,
Yes, sir.
accountability, it's like when you, it's like holding somebody. Oh, that's where I was going. It's like when you lay up there, and it was an old law that they used to have, that they got the accountability law. It was called, what was it called? Accessory. And most guys in prison under the law of accountability, they don't mind the law of accountability. The problem they have is the over sentencing from it. You see what I'm saying? Only thing we're asking, because if you went to prison and you just put a camera in there, you'll see everybody in there fighting to get out. That's one of the things I have with the youth today. If they saw how hard guys in there that's spent 20 years plus are fighting to get out, I don't think they'll want to come, because they'll see that our life is on the line. We fighting, and that's all. We in the chow hall talking law. You know what I mean? But they're fighting to get in when we're fighting to get out. So what they're going to do is get in, fight to get in, then going to be fighting to get out. You see what I'm saying? It don't make no sense. So I'm saying catch yourself before you even get to that point. You see what I'm saying? But the law of accountability, it's a crazy law. We're not tripping on the fact that, like I say, we're not tripping on the fact of the law of accountability. We're just tripping on the fact that guys are being drastically over sentenced from it.
I think it's being misused and misapplied, but that's just my personal
no doubt.
opinion.
I do too.
Okay.
And I wanted you to expound on something because you talked about the youth and, part of what you're doing now since you've been out is, you've been out here, you're speaking at different engagements, different places. You went over to the high school, sat through all of the different lunch periods, and you got a chance to speak to the youth there because you made a really key point about, the glamorization of prisons. Oh yeah, I can go in, I can do 2 bits. It's not a big deal because it's been over glamorized. The gang is going to take care of me. So Oscar actually had an opportunity to go into into the schools, talk to these high school students and say, no, that is not the truth of it. I'm going to give you the reality. Do you want to expound on that?
Yeah, I remember when I was young, right? And I remember how we used to look at guys that did time like they was, like they was the business, and being in prison, it's nothing glamorous about it at all. It's nothing glamorous about being locked up in a cage like an animal. You know what I mean? I remember.
Literally.
Because I'm going to show you something. I was in Stateville, right? And in Stateville, they do tours. Now, every time they had tours or they had TV cameras come in, I would hide. I would hide because of the simple fact that, to me, for one, when you walk by a tour, everybody do like this, like you're an animal. You see what I'm saying? They look at you like, and I didn't want to be displayed like a zoo animal. Not only that, sometimes they will bring the tours into the cell houses. Now, if you go into a cell house and you see a whole bunch of caged men in the cell house, what do that put you in a picture of? A zoo. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So I was just glad that I was on the top gallery and I was never down there because I would have probably just went and put something up in my cell so they couldn't see me. I never felt comfortable. I always liked to keep a sense of humanity. And to me, if in that sense, it kind of takes your humanity away from you. It's nothing, it's nothing slick about, where they're dictating what you do all day. They dictate when you eat, they dictate when you get, not when you get up, but they dictate when you get recreation. They dictate when you get out your cell. They dictate everything. You pretty much locked in your cell, And like I say, like when I was young, we used to look at guys like they was the business when they got out of prison. And believe me, it's a whole different experience.
So it really, in prison, it's not rehabilitation then, right?
No,
they're trying. Now, it's not yet, but they're trying. And it's only one prison that's trying. That's Stateville, since they began bringing back educational programming.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But they're trying. I'm not giving them the whole rehabilitation yet, but they're trying to get educational I think educational programming is very big for rehabilitation. You know what I mean? I've seen, where we sit in classes and talk and, and while we talking, it's like a AA meeting. Right. You know how you be in an AA meeting and all of a sudden you talking, next thing you know, you start pouring out and you start opening up and, it has that type of healing effect when you're in prison and we have some of them classes. So I've seen it work. You know what I mean? I just think it needed to take it to a whole nother level, though.
One thing in prison, and I'll leave that, but it's not like mama's cooking in a cafeteria, right?
Let's talk about the food, Oscar.
Okay, yeah. All right. This is where your family come into play.
Yes.
Because if you don't have family to take care of you, you're going to pretty much starve because you get 21 meals a week, right?
Okay.
That's 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You get breakfast at 3:30 in the morning. You get lunch at like 10 and you get dinner at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. So, but the thing is that you got 21 meals a week. Out of those 21 meals, you're going to get maybe 4 meals that's edible.
Edible.
That are edible.
Keyword edible.
That are edible. So if you don't have family taking care of you, now I'm gonna show you another thing. Because even with me I had family taking care of me. So I was, I have a blessed family, and I love them, and I thank them for what they did.
And you mean
for
commissary by family?
Yeah, commissary. Being able to send you money to get you commissary. Because like I say, most of the people in the mobs that are in the gangs, all of them struggling. Just about. If they don't have no family taking care of them, they're struggling. Okay. That's the top and bottom line because the gang's not taking care of them. I guarantee you that. And they'll find that out real quick. But my family took care of me. Now, when I was eating from the commissary, though, I ended up with high blood pressure because all of the food is processed.
Yeah.
I was wondering, now that I'm out, my blood pressure is great. You see what I'm saying? But when I was in there, my blood pressure was always high. And the doctor would always tell me, she said, you have to lay off of the processed foods, but that's the only thing. But she said, I understand that's the only thing y'all really have to eat, you know. So yeah, the food is not good, not very good.
Well, I guess if I could fast forward this to, well, first of all, are you truly free now? Are there restrictions pending on you since you've been released?
No restrictions. The only thing, I just can't go out of the state.
Out of state?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet, until my 2 years of parole are over with.
Okay.
It's really 3, but they gave me they upped my level, so now it breaks down to 2 because my parole is like a day for day now. After like 2 months, you are eligible for not a reduction, but a promotion. I got a promotion after 2 months.
Okay.
So yeah.
Right.
Meaning that he's not a serious threat and doesn't need to be constantly monitored.
Right.
Because of that incident from the beginning.
From the very beginning. And again, he wasn't there. And
Yeah,
it keeps going back to that. And I have to keep reiterating this because part of what he's doing now with, his youth mentorship, like you spoke about when you went to the bar on the South Side and the gentleman that made a difference to you, he said, this isn't where you should be. That's what Oscar's trying to do now. And that's why I told him, I said, as long as you're out here doing something positive, I will help you. And I will help you get your message out there to reach as many youth as possible so that you, by your example, you can talk about what happened to you, how being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people, got you, took away a huge portion of your life.
Yeah.
So getting to these children, you're not going to reach every single one, but if you can reach 1, if you can reach 5, if you can reach 10, you've made a difference in the life of somebody so that they don't go down that path. We're trying to stop, this cycle, in and out of of being incarcerated. So, and that's what he's been doing, reaching out to these youth. And I think that's real important, that youth mentorship piece.
Yeah.
Okay. Rita, you may be able to speak to this. Maybe you already sentencing as a youth under the felony murder law. Is that what he was sentenced under?
Yeah.
Well, you
That's what I know exactly about the felony murder law. Is basically another form of accountability.
Okay, I got you.
It's basically saying that if there's an underlying crime that, like, say you got a robbery, but it turned into a murder.
Okay.
That's felony murder because they can get you for the felony of the robbery and make you accountable for the murder.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? That's what felony murder rule is. And that's what I was actually convicted. Now watch this. I was actually convicted under the 3 is first you have intentional murder.
Okay.
Now how did you get me in on intentional murder?
If you weren't there.
Right.
Okay.
Then you had knowing murder.
Knowing that it was going to happen.
Knowing that it was going to happen. Okay. Then you had felony murder, right? So it was based on another crime. So they had me on all 3. I argued it. They said, I argued against the intentional murder. The thing was that what happened was that when I argued against the intentional murder, okay, they dropped, this is why I'm in courts for years. I'm in the courts for years. So they dropped the intentional murder and the knowing murder and get me with felony murder. You see what I'm saying? They said, okay, well, we can drop that. We'll just get you, leave this on you. And, but the thing was that they argued to my jury, which probably would have seen the case different, that it was intentional. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of manipulated. I just don't like the way they be able to manipulate certain laws. And like you say, when we was talking about the public defenders, they're not in a position to defend it the way they were supposed to. Because like I told you, Doug Roberts asked me. He said, I had a public defender when I went to trial.
Okay, that's.
And Doug Roberts asked me, how did you get convicted of this? He said, there was no way you should have got convicted of this.
Right. But actually, to the public defender's defense, he did, to his credit, he did get you a good deal.
Yeah.
You just didn't take the deal. You know, which I can understand, because if you didn't do it, you know, any normal person is like, I'm not going to plead guilty to something I didn't do.
Yeah.
You know, that's the average normal person. But
the thing is that when he was bringing me the deal, I was like, nobody is saying I did anything. So why? I mean, you know, how is it that, you know what I'm saying?
right,
You know, yeah.
it's a problem.
Well, let's go on to your ultimate goal. I understand that you're still interested in education, right?
Yes, very much so.
So tell us about your educational process, your educational goal.
Well, you know, I'm in North Park trying to get my master's degree in theology.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm working and I'm so serious. See, the education, right, is very important to me, because I believe that, not just because it's important to me because I'm a biblical man as it is,
Okay.
but it's important to me because I believe that I'm representing a lot of guys that's in prison that I feel deserve a shot.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? These are my guys. These are guys that I grew up with. You see what I'm saying? And I grew up with them, and I don't want another Willie Horton situation. You see what I'm saying? You know, I know everybody know about Willie Horton, so I feel a big responsibility with my education to finish school. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm probably gonna have to, you know, my job that I have is full time, and I'm probably gonna have to drop it down because I have to take 2 classes this coming up in January on the 12th. You see what I'm saying? 1 class was already enough working full time.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna have to take 2 classes, so I'm gonna probably have to not drop my job, but make it part time. You know what I mean? That's how important my education is to me. I really need that master's degree because I plan on, you know, helping the guys back in prison by giving them a success story. You see what I'm saying? That's my phone, sorry about that. I plan on giving them a success story.
Okay.
And
You can
my
also be a
education.
role model, you know, with the
Exactly.
youth as well, to say, you know what, I didn't allow my circumstances to define me.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And the success story, I'm planning on, you know, I wanted to show that a person that's been locked up for a long period of time can come out and be, you know, successful. You see what I'm saying? So that's my goal, is to show them that a person that's been locked up for a long period of time, because it's a lot, like I say, it's a lot of guys that I know that can get out under the Rehabilitation Act and operate in society. You know, I know that many times in society, they think that a person locked up for a long period of time will just come out and he's going to act.
Well, they think you're institutionalized
Exactly.
and that you're just going to repeat offend and go back in because there's no way you can adapt to society. So you're breaking the mold.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great thing. And I think that's what we need. We need to show more of the positive stories that are out here.
Exactly.
The people who are making a difference, who are becoming contributing citizens.
And housing, you were successful in housing when you got out, as well as employment, right? You're
Yeah.
one of the success stories.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I've actually had a lot of offers for jobs. And the job that I'm at right now, I've actually had better offers than the job that I'm at right now. The thing was that the job where I'm at right now is right across the street from the school.
So convenience.
So it was convenient. You see what I'm saying? So yeah.
Oh boy, this is fantastic. I'm thinking of the youth may be watching the program. There are youth that are not able to afford a legal assistance, and we mentioned that the public defender is not the best defender because, as Rita mentioned, alluded to that being 25 or 50 cases, they just cannot
No doubt.
treat it the way it should be treated.
Underpaid,
right?
overworked.
The whole works.
It's very difficult for them. You know, they do their best. You know, I don't ever want to say that they don't, because they're trying. They're trying to do the best they can with the little
doubt.
bit that they have. And it's truly not enough. We really do need to look at our public defender's office, you know, thinning out the cases so that they do have more time, to truly invest in those individuals who cannot afford a private attorney, because we have so many families that cannot afford a private attorney.
Okay, right. And just think of those that are, and there are probably hundreds, maybe thousands that are in prison. I shouldn't say prison, I should say just incarcerated, that are waiting trial, in maybe years too, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the overload there.
Because of the overload.
Of the courts and so forth, So we spoke about seeing a public defender, but those that are overcrowding because they're waiting trial, they're just overcrowding.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my message to them and to their families, even, and this goes back to Oscar, is don't give up. Never give up hope, because your child can come home.
Okay.
It may take some time. It may take several appeals. It may take intervention from somebody like me. But if you give up hope, you've already lost. As long as you have that hope.
No, I would have liked to give a story, but I wait till you get done, because I wanted to give you a great story on my whole situation as far as my freedom and how I got out and the part she played and how God.
This is the time. This is your program.
All right. My story, right? It was like I was on the debate team, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One second. Let me see. Okay. That's what I want to say. I traced my freedom back to God in 4 cookies.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was in Menard, and I was working in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And when I was working in the kitchen, one day, I never brought nothing in. I was, in that word. I was in the word every day. Everybody else was doing what they do. They was, bringing stuff in even though they weren't supposed to.
Okay.
I never brought nothing in. One day, a guy asked me, he said, man, I made you a fat burger. He was working the shift before me. He said, but bring me in some cookies. It was some peanut butter cookies. It was 4 cookies. I say, I don't usually bring it in, but they never shook our guys shook us down coming in. So I said, okay, I'll bring them in for them this one time. So I'm coming, we see the lieutenants standing there. They look at us, and when they look at us, we standing there because all of the other guys got all kind of stuff on them.
Okay.
So they go around the corner, we come around the corner. They say, oh, we just want to see if y'all got any guns on y'all, knives and this and this. So they shake us down. They got a pile full of food over there. Mm-hmm. I got 4 cookies. I say, I know they're not gonna get me about 4 cookies.
Okay.
So I kept, because I could have just started eating them and I would have been good. Mm-hmm. But I said, I know they're not gonna trip with me about 4 cookies. So they lock us all up. The wardens come and see all of the food, talking about all of the stuff that's going on. The next day, the guys in the regular kitchen, because we was working in the officer's kitchen, the guys in the regular kitchen get caught on stealing a whole bunch of chicken.
Okay.
So when they stealing the chicken, they go straight to SIG. So, but our crew, we worked. So they were talking about, well, we're not going to do nothing to them. We just going to make them work. We're going to let them keep their jobs because they work real good. This. So then what happened was that on April 17th, that happened on April 4th, we was on deadlock in our cells. Mm-hmm. So on April 17th, they shipped us up out the joint. Mm. They came, pack your stuff, y'all going to hear y'all tickets and SIG. Then they came back 5 minutes later and said, y'all can unpack, y'all are good. Then they came back a couple of minutes later saying, pack y'all stuff, y'all leaving up out the joint. So I ended up doing 2 months in segregation
for 4
cookies.
Oh my goodness.
And they shipped me down to Stateville. So I get to Stateville. I was planning on going back because they was talking about giving us our jobs back if we got back down there. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm gonna give me some of these, because Menard we considered Menard sort of a white man's joint and Stateville a black man's joint. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get me some of these cosmetics from Stateville and take them back to Menard. Okay. So I get out a SIG and I'm going around and I'm seeing how lax it is in Stateville. So I was like, wow, this is okay. This is all right. So I started staying in Stateville. Not long after that, they bring in educational programming. I decided to stay in Stateville. They bring in educational programming. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a class called Mass Incarceration, while I'm in mass incarceration, Jan Schakowsky come to the class. This is where I found out that my situation had a lot of bite. And she was talking about mandatory minimums, which is something that should be brought up too. But I said, well, can I give you an argument against mandatory minimums? She said, yeah. I said, they offered me an 11-year deal at 50%. I said, when I didn't take the deal, they turned around and gave me natural life. And when I seen how she reacted, that's what let me know I had something. That was the first time everybody in the class heard my story. So after that, the chaplain Adamson, he was the one that went to Jan Schakowsky and said, the bald head guy that called himself Smiley, that's my nickname, Smiley. He said, how is it that he was considered rehabilitatable after 5.5 years, but then when he don't take the 5 years,
Right.
he's beyond rehabilitation? So she ended up writing about it in the op-ed. So that's when I knew I had some bite. So what happened was Chaplain Adamson started trying to get me into every class that had politicians or somebody to come so my story could get heard. So what happened was that one day I was in a Bible study in his office, and me and him was debating about the word. I'm into the apologetics, so we was debating about the word. So Professor Michelle come in from North Park Theological Seminary. She was in the other room, so I went in there with Professor Michelle.
Okay. Speed it up.
And she, when I was with Professor Michelle, they asked me, did I want to be on the debate team? So I get on the debate team, we get in there, a lady named Katrina Burlett, she come and do the debate. When all of a sudden we invite them to come to the debate. So when we invite them to come to the debate, they heard my story. I wrote an article called Natural Life Sentences Being Applied the Way They're Meant to Be, and I told my story in it. So they heard my story. Everybody in the room was flabbergasted when they heard my story. But she was the only one that did something. And that was what I always loved about her. She was the only one that did something. Everybody else was talking about wait for the law to change, but she did something. She actually did something, because just to show you how God was working is that I had my clemency going in at this very same time, which I wrote it out in 2016, but I was waiting on the election because I know that the time to put it in is when the governor's about to leave office. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So I put it in. All of this just came in together. It was like a wave. And then after the governor granted my clemency, I was ticked, but I ain't gonna go into that. But the thing was that I also had my post-conviction in of the Young Adult Act, and she started talking to the people, and after that, the rest is history. But it was just amazing how them 4 cookies led to my, and I was mad about it at the time, but they led to my release.
4 cookies led to your release, absolutely.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for taking so much time.
Well, that's okay. That's an important phase in your life.
Yeah, it was.
In your incarceration, right?
It was.
The 4 cookies, and you never will forget that.
Never.
And we won't forget the 4 cookies either.
Yeah.
Well, Rita, I want to thank you very much. The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Yes, He does.
And He just touched your heart, and of course you just knew it was wrong. In your heart, you knew it's wrong.
It was just wrong, And Eddie Washington, my predecessor, used to always say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Okay. And that just resonated so strongly with me after I heard Oscar's case. I said, I'm going to do something. I don't know what I can do, but I'm going to do something. I didn't just sit still. I made a bunch of phone calls. I wrote letters. I bugged everybody possible. I'm like, this man needs to be free.
And I thank her for that. I really do. Because I would still be in there fighting right now if it wasn't for what she did.
Is that right?
That's crazy. And I would still be in there fighting right now.
Well, I might end with this, leading to my end, is that there are 3 types of people in the world. There are people that make things happen. There's people that watch things happen.
That's true.
And there's others that wonder what's happening. So you still would have been there incarcerated. You was just watching or wondering what's happening.
Exactly.
Right.
So thank you for being a person that making things happen. And both of you, actually, Rita, on your part, you have been in the legislature how many years now?
Since 2010. I came in July 2010. I got appointed. Yes.
And
we got to get her back. We got to get her back elected.
I appreciate that. Yes.
Well,
get her back elected.
Well, you deserve to make that plug, okay? An election is when coming up now?
It's March 17th, 2020. Please vote Rita Mayfield. I really appreciate it.
I can say that. She can't, but I can say it.
I'd appreciate it, yes.
There's
probably, the continued support, yes.
Probably other people that are waiting, maybe not in the incarceration part, but some other phase that you have been working.
Well, since Oscar's gotten out, I've gotten, oh my God, so many cases, and Oscar's actually helped me go through some to see who we can help. Because,
Right.
you know, if there's anybody that I can help get out, I will.
This is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we've been talking with, and I mentioned at the top of the program, a person that you should know. And that person is Mr. Oscar Parham.
Parham, yeah.
Parham. You know, he's a youth mentor. And we met, he was a repatriate speaker at the 16th Annual Coalition to Reduce Recidivism Luncheon program on October 11, 2019. And he just took the hearts of everyone there. And I know he really took mine, and it's been since October, but we had the radio program, and that was on a half hour.
Yeah.
But that was not enough. So we're here tonight with the 1 hour for him discussion. And as you could hear, it's probably another hour that we should have a part two sometime to give him a chance to let him talk more about the 4 cookies that turned his life around.
Yeah.
And Oscar, we want to thank you very much
Thanks a lot, man.
for taking time for your very busy schedule. It took a little planning, and Rita, thank you very
so
much
for having us.
for taking time from your busy schedule in Springfield
Yes.
to come down. We had a little vacation time for you to come down and be on the program because this is a very serious program and very influential, and hopefully that, I'm sure it has been beneficial to our listening audience, that the information been promulgated that will make them want to do something, because we want to be part of the people that make things happen. Lake County is, we have a great audience, a Comcast audience of about 100,000 people at least. But this program is going online, drbrooks.tv.
Okay.
And so this program is going to be shown all over the world.
Okay, that's great.
And I'm sure our people probably in Chicago with Jesse Jackson and my what's the name? My other well, all of the civil rights and people that believe in God, that but God is the answer.
Yes.
And we hope you many hours of success. Maybe you be a preacher one of these days,
There you
pastor.
No doubt,
You know.
no doubt.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.